Right, evening everybody, it's Saturday 3rd of December, and you might be able to tell by my voice that I am under the weather, shall we say. I've not done a couple of drams in the last couple of days because I've been feeling pretty rough. I think I'm over the hump and I think I'm coming out of it, but it's all in my head, really thick throat, pretty hacking cough over the last couple of days. I am the last one in the house to get it. Everybody in the house has got this, including Flynn, which sounds absolutely awful. Poor little fella, he's not even 8 weeks old and we've already subjected him to this crappy disease. So yes, I'm hoping that I'm going to be well enough, I'm going to have enough recovery to be able to make the most out of this, which was a very kind donation by Kevin Tapp. Thank you very much, Kevin. One of a few that he sent me, which I'm very, very grateful for. And this is Royal Brackla. Which is here, and when it was first set up in 1812 by a guy called Captain William Fraser, it was just known as Brackla, which was the sort of village, I suppose, that it was based in. Now he was a pretty unpopular because there was a lot of illicit distilling around this time, and he basically set up the distillery with the view of putting these moonshiners off. And it ended up becoming quite well regarded, to the point where King William IV really did like it a lot and gave it the royal prefix. Now there's only 3 distilleries that have the royal prefix, but one of them is actually a suffix. There's Royal Brackla, Royal Lochnagar, which we have covered, and Glenury Royal, which I don't think I've managed to source. I have a feeling is closed, but I could be wrong. So it stayed in there. It was that popular, it became known as the King's Own Whisky, and it was actually marketed as that. So it stayed in the Fraser family until 1898, and it was during that time, it's actually quite highly regarded for being known as the first malt whisky to be used in blends with grain. It's basically, what's the word, not adhered to, but the guy that's known for essentially creating blended whiskey as a blend of malt and grain whiskey, is a guy called Andrew Usher. And Brackla was the first malt whiskey that he blended with grain whiskey to create what we now know as blended whiskey. Andrew Usher was an agent and actually became a director of the distillery itself. It was sold again in 1926. The people that bought it, not particularly interesting. Eventually in 1946 it went under DCL's wing, which was eventually becoming part of Diageo. It became surplus to requirements in 1985, but it reopened in 1991. Became part of Diageo, but Diageo then had to sell their Dewar's branding, essentially is because they were getting too big and it was part of deals and acquisitions, and it was like, no, you've got to sell the Dewar's brand. So they had to sell Dewar's plus associated distilleries with that. And Brackla, Royal Brackla, was being used in Johnnie Walker and also Dewar's. So they ended up selling Dewar's and the Royal Brackla distillery along with a couple of others to Bacardi, of which this is now part of, still Bacardi. So it is still used in Johnnie Walker, but it's mainly used in Dewar's. So even though Diageo don't own it, they are still using some of it to go into Johnnie Walker. I think it's Johnnie Walker Gold, I read, is the one that it's mainly used in. So yes, part of Dewar's, but it's one of these distilleries that was kind of not very well known because it's used for blends. But 2015, last year, Bacardi announced that they would actually be relaunching Royal Brackla as an official line. So I've not seen it yet, and I think it's something like a 12, a 16 and a 21 or something like that. So if you do know, and if you've tried the official bottlings of it, let me know in the comments, because it'd be interesting to know what you think. This particular one isn't official bottling. It's from an independent bottling company called Adelphi, and this is what the bottle looks like. It's a single cask bottling, 268 bottles of it in existence, and it's 16-year-old. It's a 1997 distillation that was bottled in 2014. And Kevin's written on unknown cask, but I have read that it's a bourbon cask, so hopefully, Kevin, it is what I've read it as, and that should help you a little bit. Now, Adelphi were an independent bottling. It was actually a distillery back in the day that I think in the 1960s was demolished and is now home to a mosque, I believe. But the branding, the name Adelphi, was sort of relaunched by a gentleman called James Walker in 1993. Now, the Adelphi company now own the Ardnamurchan distillery, which is here. It's a little peninsula of Scotland, just north of the Isle of Malt. And Ardnamurchan opened in 2014. It was officially opened then by Princess Royal, I think, and that was when they launched they ran off their first spirit. So it will be a couple of years before we even hit anything like whiskey. 3 years minimum, probably a few years after that. But they have branched out into their own distillery, so you know they're doing pretty well for themselves. This isn't just some fly-by-night operation. So it's cask strength. It is 56. Hang on, 56.8, 56.8. So I've got some water ready. I'm assuming no colouring, no chill filtration. And considering it's a 16-year-old and bourbon cask, I'm fairly confident it's got no colouring in it, because that is pretty light for a 16-year-old in a bourbon cask. That really is quite a light white wine colour. Very much, almost Riesling-y. Not an oaky Chardonnay by any stretch of the imagination. Ooh. It's quite... it's been a while since I've had this on my nose, this kind of paint, not paint thinner, but it's like you open a tin of paint and you get this waft of, and it's not chemical and it's not an unpleasant smell, but it's a weird kind of slightly sweet and very, very sharp spiritiness that is very much like opening a tin of paint, where you get this slightly oily, slightly thick, creamy, slightly spirity, weird combination that, like I say, is not unpleasant. I kind of like opening a fresh tin of paint. You get this waft and it's kind of like, oh, it smells weird, but it's kind of comforting and actually quite pleasant. And it is there. Now, some of the spiritiness is no doubt because of the alcohol percentage, but there is definitely, there's a fruitiness to it. It's a kind of appley fruitiness. It's very, very fresh indeed. But there's this underlying sweetness, and there's almost a grassiness to it as well, like a fresh cut grass. Very, very interesting. Right. Whoa. That cleared the back of my throat. Now it's going to need some water, but the sweetness continues. And actually, because my throat's a little bit rough still, I can taste it. I'm picking up quite a lot of flavour, fortunately. My taste buds aren't completely shot, but I was almost bracing myself for the kick, because it felt, as it was travelling towards the back of my throat, like it was going to be really, really fiery and really hot with alcohol. And as it hit my tonsils, I was almost bracing myself like, this is going to hurt. But it didn't, and it turned into a wave of very, very sweet sugar. It really is quite sweet. But there's something quite fragrant about it. There's a very... It's a sweet but fragrant, almost jasmine, honeysuckle, that sort of thing. But really, it's not like it's not a light and delicate honeysuckle and jasmine. It's almost like concentrated honeysuckle jasmine flavours with caramel and toffee. It's a strange combination, but it works really, really well. I'm going to add some water in, but I'm not going to add too much, because I don't think it needs that much in. What I want to do is almost just take the edge off, which I'm taking the edge off and I'm holding a syringe like that. It doesn't really sound particularly good, but I just want to put enough in just to take the heat down a notch, but try and keep those flavours, because this is a surprisingly sweet, rich whiskey. And when I say rich, I mean rich as in it's not delicate. It's not rich as in heavily sherried or heavily bourboned or, deep and dark. This is delicate flavours that are sort of boiled down to a concentrated level where you have warmth and depth to it as well. See, on the nose, a definite kind of jasmine, honeysuckle, spring garden feel to it. The paint has gone, so that's probably just more of the alcohol that was giving me that effect. but it's the sweetness is coming through a bit more, and I think that's why I was associating with the tin of paint, because you get this weird kind of chemically, but also like a sweet creaminess with paint. Is that just me? I've got a bad feeling that's just me. But the sweeter flavours are coming through now. I'm really liking this, but it's really odd. It's really unusual. Oh yeah, oh. Still some heat, but not overpowering now. And now it's turned into, it's kind of candy floss and spun sugar, and there is caramel and toffee, but it's very light caramel and toffee. It's not kind of like rich, thick, fudgy toffiness. It's really weird because it's kind of half delicate and half quite sweet, and there is this tiny touch of very, very sweet oak. There is a sweet oakiness to it and a maltiness, but it's lovely. It's really lovely, but it's not a spring whiskey. It's not light and delicate enough to be what I'd consider a spring whiskey, but it's not heavy enough to be autumnal. And summer whiskey, I wouldn't really necessarily drink this on a summer's day. It's not quite light enough. It's strange. It's really unusual, but I really, really like this. I think this is excellent, but I can't I haven't even finished one. Compartmentalise it. There we go. I can't compartmentalise it. I can't put it in a box to say it's a spring whiskey, it's an autumn whiskey. You would have this after dinner. I don't think you'd have this after dinner. Would you have this after work on a summer's evening? Maybe. It would be cracking on a tasting. It would be absolutely brilliant on a tasting. But I can't pick a time of day or a social situation other than being in a tasting and trying to offer somebody something unusual where you would box this as in that's the time of day that you have it, or that's the thing that's happened in your life when you have it. You know, after a Sunday dinner. No, after dinner. No. Maybe after something like a light, salmon salad or something. I don't know. It's a really, really strange whiskey, but strange in a very, very good way. It's strange that it's very hard to kind of pin it down and say it is this, which is great because whiskey can be quite boring in terms of, well, that one tastes like that, that's heavily sherried, it does that you're in danger of kind of boxing everything off and goes, that fits into that one, that fits in there, that goes into that section, that's that list there, that's that. This is this is dancing about between all of them and doesn't really want to play with any of them. It's great. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Kevin, thank you very much for that. No wonder the King liked it. If the others were like that, if that's any indication of what the standard bottlings are like, that's an absolute belter. That's really, really good. Did I say what the price was? I don't think I did. And that's because I couldn't actually find a price for it. Anywhere that was listing this was saying it was out of stock. So I don't know. I couldn't even find it on an auction site. But I would say that's worth checking out. I think if you can find it, get it. Because that is a really, really nice, delicate but rich, sweet whiskey. I think it's excellent. I think it's really, really good. Right up my street. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciated that. And so hopefully the next video that you'll see will be a special announcement, and then hopefully the one after that will be a special guest. So I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.